Hi, good morning. Welcome to the Board of Franklin County Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, December the 5th. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Howard,
Present.
Commissioner Waymire, Chair Renaud,
Present.
Vice Chair Oglesby,
Present.
Commissioner Dunn.
Present.
If you would, please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Gracious Father God, we thank you for another day you've given us. And Lord God, just as we mourn as a nation, I pray, God, you'd comfort our nation, loss of our 41st President of the United States, comfort his family, be with them. And Lord, this time of year, holiday season, help us not get all caught up in the buying and selling, but Lord, help us realize what the reason for the seasons is. You give your Son for us so we can have life and have life more abundantly. And we praise you and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that takes us to correspondence, organizational business. Derek, anything before we go with that one? Okay. If not, then Chrissy, if you want to come up. We'll receive an end-of-the-year update from CASA for the 4th Judicial District.
CASA of the 4th Judicial District just wanted to come provide a quick update to you guys. Thanks to your guys' generosity for providing us an increase and kind of a jumping point for our funding to start 2019. CASA was able to go to all of our other counties in the 4th Judicial District. We have secured so far an increase for all of our funding for next year. We were able to talk with Anderson County, and we have now secured $6,900 in funding from Anderson County. Previously, we had only received $4,000 in funding from them. We also spoke with Coffee County, and we have now increased our funding to $10,000 from Coffee County. Originally, we had only received $5,000 from them. We also went and spoke with our Jones Trust Fund Foundation. Originally, last year we did receive an extra $2,000 from them, so we received last year $12,000. When we received our grant last week, we received a check in the mail for $20,000. So that is a huge increase for CASA. We are very thankful for the Jones Foundation, and that grant went into effect November 6th. So that is a huge help for CASA. We are very thankful for the Jones Foundation. We are going to be able to do a lot of education programs starting in January. We are going to be able to do a lot of volunteer training, add a lot of money into our For the Child Fund, so that if our children need anything, clothing, shoes, any needs for sports activities, we are going to be able to help our children with those events. We also wrote 2 additional grants this year to Walmart, and we were successful in receiving both of those for an additional $2,000. We also have a fundraiser coming up in February of 2019 that CASA will be holding. So we are getting ready to increase that. We have changed our board around a little bit. So we now have 3 new members to the CASA Board of Directors from here in the community. So we will be coming to all of you in February. We are doing this year, CASA is having a no-show ball. So you will all be receiving information in the mail in regards to our fundraiser. So we will have that as well. What else have we done this year? CASA has, we have successfully trained 3 fully vetted volunteers. They have completely, they all have families right now. One has completed with a family and is on her 2nd family already. 2 children have completed their guardianship. 1 child aged out of our system, and 1 child, he was completely adopted on Monday. So we are closing cases and getting new cases and being successful in our communities right now. We passed our 2018 Office of Judicial Administration certification, which is a mandatory requirement. It means we have all of our financial items are in place, our files are intact, and we meet all requirements of our judges in regards to attending hearings, visiting our children, and our volunteers, training requirements. And we survived all of this with also losing a couple of grants this year, and not being able to participate in a couple of fundraisers that we have in the past. So we just wanted to provide you guys with an update that thanks to you guys believing in CASA last year and providing us with that increase, we were able to continue on, and we have gone out and had a fantastic year so far, and we are very excited to see what January 2019 brings to us. And we will be adding our volunteer coordinator position January 1st, 2019, and that will allow us to increase even more.
Well, in addition to your financial funding, what kind of in-kind funding are you getting, like office space or stuff like that, or are you getting anything from?
You guys gave us our office that we have in the courthouse, and then through the 4th Judicial District, John Steelman works with us, and he has provided that any office items that we need, we are allowed to utilize their electronic, if they have monitors, computer devices, things like that they are no longer using. He is willing to provide CASA any of those items. They provide all of our copy paper that we need for CASA, all of our stamps, and anything else that we may think of.
That's the 4th Judicial District.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
And
John's.
Utilities, you have to pay your utilities, they're
No,
included?
utilities are included in that. We do pay our phone and our internet and our copies.
Okay.
We do pay for those items. But the 4th Judicial District is working with us right now. We're trying to get the agreement set up. They are willing to give us all of their electronic items. It's just we're not at the point yet where they're able to give us those items.
Sure. Okay.
I got one question. I'm kind of interested a little bit in this Jones Fund. Is this the same Jones Fund that's been in Lyon County? And
Yes.
I was always under the impression that money could not be used out of those counties. Is there any stipulations on that money they give you?
It is still only used down in those counties, but because that money increased down there, it frees up money that we receive up here. To now, we don't have to provide any money from
I mean,
sources up here.
I know it helps even if it's only in those counties. I was just, like I
Yeah.
said, always under the impression it couldn't be used out of those counties. So.
Yeah, it is only available down there. So our other money sources that we apply for, we are partnering with H&R Block. Now, when they have their taxes done, anybody who does their taxes, they donate so much money back to us. So those fundraisers, a lot of the no-show ball fundraisers, different things like that, we're able to keep more of that money back up in Franklin County because of the increase that we received from the areas down there. And we're hoping this year we had a very large change in district attorneys with all 4 counties, that we'll be able to work with them to work on funding as well.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that I would commend the board for is you really led the charge on these increases. By increasing our funding to CASA, Chrissy was able to go to those other counties and acknowledge the fact that Franklin County provided an increase, which then led to a domino effect, which has really improved her funding. And I think the missions of all of our community partners are incredibly important. But when you think about CASA CASA specifically and the population that it serves, I mean, these are kids whose life hasn't even gotten off the ground yet. I mean, we're really doing what we can to give them a chance. You know, I know that, you know, I came from a household with two good parents, and for the better part of my life, you take that sort of thing for granted, and you realize how many kids aren't in that situation, and they don't have simple luxuries like that. And so you know, Chrissy's kept me in the loop on this, and I'm ecstatic for her and what it means for the future of CASA. So.
Well, I think getting the participation on your board would be another big plus, that, hey, when you get the buy-in from those people, then that's just going to domino effect also. Yeah, right, great. Okay, anything else, guys? Good, congratulations. Thanks for the update, too. Appreciate that.
And we do have our CASA, our appreciation and thanks for you guys. All of our new CASA items that we did bring for you guys. Just as a way of saying thank you for the increase, kind of encouraging us. That was kind of a big thank you for allowing me to be able to go to these other counties and show them that we are making a change and we are being the positive difference. So I appreciate that.
I think, yeah,
Commissioner William might be here in a
hopefully
little bit.
All right. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it.
you're welcome. Okay. Anything else then on correspondence, Derek? Okay, no public comment, right?
We have a public comment.
Okay.
We have a
public-
general public comment.
But that's on an item, or,
No, we have
Okay,
it on
public-
general and then on item 2.
okay. Mr. Hurt?
Gene Hurt, 219 West 4th Street in Linden, Kansas. As the minister indicated, this is a day of mourning, and it is a holiday, or it's been prone to be a day off for federal employees, as well as for the post office, except for what deliveries they have to make for perishable goods and so forth, from what I understand. But I want to make a reference on that too yesterday, because we had our great man from Kansas was there, Robert Dole. And, you know, when you sit there and watch that whole thing, here's a man that's in a wheelchair, and he's a World War II veteran like Bush was. And he had to be helped out of the wheelchair, which he wanted to, so he could give him a salute. Now that shows courage and whatever else it could be for a man to do that. And you could see the emotion on his face when he did it. So I hope that everybody in the state of Kansas will realize that we have a man there still, of World War II, that did honor Bush. And I think that's a great accomplishment that he did. Now, what else I got to say is, you know, we talked about Proximity Park last week to great length, and you had your meeting with the city and all that. And so, reference one area is that I did some investigating since then. And the gentleman that talked to you guys down there at the city that day stated that Topeka was giving away free land to get people in there, and I made an emphasis about that last week again. Well, I come to find out where that's at. Okay, now, here's the main emphasis I want to bring on that one is they've got a number of them already pushing for that acreage that they're willing to give free. And like I said, there's one advantage they got over you right now off the bat. It's not in a floodplain like it is out here. And I'm sorry I have to bring that up again because I said it years ago and I say it again today. And as the man told you from Kansas City, you got to move. Move. You can't sit and wait. And you and the city are going to have to sit down, and you're going to have to have meetings every week. If you're going to do anything to get accomplishment out here, you're going to have to do that. And so I just want to emphasize that. and to get you guys motivated to do that. You're going to have to meet at least a week or whatever you're going to do. You're going to have to move. Now, the other thing I got to say on that part is I'm going to speak under the other part for Princeton Construction down there on 59 Highway later, but you're spending a lot of money, tons of money, millions of dollars. And you've addressed the issue about your place in here, what, 1 and 2, you know, giving it to Nick Robbins for the SMS. I think that's great. I think that's good. But I think there needs to be something else in his place here that you forget and been brought up before. Dustin, and he doesn't know what I'm saying today, so let me put it that way. Because if there's one thing that was classic about what down there when they had it on TV, where you guys were with the city, they had different views of cameras hitting you and this person talking over here. That needs to be improved. That needs to be improved here for Dustin's, for the equipment he needs to do that here. Okay? Well, it's $10,000, $20,000 or whatever. You ought to be able to do that, because this place has been that way, like it is right now, for over 15 to 20 years. So let's have an update on that part of it, and I think that would help a little bit for him. Thank you.
Okay. Our consent agenda today. Items include the Franklin County Commission meeting minutes for November 28th, claim vouchers in the amount of $181,362.78, and a voucher in the amount of $630, and approve the payroll for the pay period of October 21 through November 20 in the amount of $1,187,295.66.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn? Chair Renaud?
Yes. Okay, first item of business, consider holding a public hearing to consider adopting Lake Region Solid Waste Plan and approving the resolution.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Jim.
It would please the chair if you'd open a public hearing.
Yes. Do we need to do a motion then for that?
Yep.
Okay, so we need a motion then to open a public hearing for the solid waste program.
Make the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Chair Renaud?
Yes. Okay, anyone that we need to have speak on the hearing for the solid waste plan? Anyone to speak on the solid waste plan? Okay. We need a motion then to close the hearing.
Make a motion that we close the public hearing on the solid waste management plan.
Second.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Chair Renaud?
Yes. Okay, Jim?
As was stated previously, the Solid Waste Committee has met and conducted an annual review. Your board has already approved the resolution, but it was necessary to have a public hearing, and that's why it's being brought back before you. So at this time, I would appreciate a motion approving the resolution.
Okay, anybody have any questions about the Lake Region Solid Waste Management Plan? It's a very large document, and obviously by participating in that plan, we don't have to do our own, so that's the reason we're there. So I would accept a motion then.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution 1845, adopting Lake Region Solid Waste Management Plan.
Second.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Renaud?
Yes. Okay, that brings up our second item for business. Okay. Submission of access management construction project application for additional work at US 59 and Kingman Road.
We do have a public comment on this item.
Okay. Okay, Jim? You want to go ahead, Jim, before we do the public comment?
KDOT has announced funding for access management projects. There are additional recommended improvements to the US 59 highway corridor consisting of a northbound and an additional southbound lane in the area of Kingman Road, and also a right turn lane for southbound traffic to go westbound on Kingman. The application does indicate $2 million in participation from the state of Kansas and $1,527,000 for items connected with the local responsibility.
Okay, any questions for Jim about this project application?
Was this a match type thing or anything?
Well, we previously were awarded $1.4 million. We had a trip to Topeka. They added additional funding to bring it to $1.7 million. That project will probably be advertised and let in the near future for construction next summer. This is additional work on top of that, and there are items of work that the state's not going to pay for. Moving utilities, acquisition of right-of-way, although that was done under the current project that's going to be let, preliminary engineering. So there are local costs in order to achieve the $2 million, which is for construction only.
But we don't know what those costs are at this time.
We have an estimate prepared by PEC, who are the ones that are designing the current project.
Is there an advantage to doing these projects simultaneously or doing them in stages? I mean, which is the better plan?
Well, the corridor study that was performed from 23rd Street to Haskell Road indicates that this is an intermediate. At present time, the additional lanes are not warranted, but it would be nice to tie up the funding while they have the money before it goes to Johnson County for widening I-35 north of 75th Street.
So this motion technically is going to be just the motion to, for the application for the additional.
Yes, it approves application.
And-
If it's awarded, then it'll come back before you to execute an additional agreement with KDOT Access Management for the actual details of what's being accomplished.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. I mean, this is the plan that allows us to get the funding. And so, yeah, certainly no issues with this. And to answer your question, Commissioner Oglesby, that's almost a policy question as to whether it's advantageous to do this now. I mean, I think what we've talked about before is, you know, let's not turn that into a 5-lane freeway before it's necessary and before we have someone on the land. I mean, certainly you guys could direct us to do that, but until we have more funding that from KDOT, that's going to come out of our pocket, and you know, it's arguably unnecessary at this time. And KDOT has indicated to us, they told us in that meeting, that if we get someone here who is interested, that they will then effectively get on the ball and really look at providing us with more funding. So what we've talked about before was, let's just wait and see how the recruitment process goes. But if I recall, Jim, in that email where this was sent, and I don't know if it was Nelda or who it was, but indicated that a lot of KDOT's funding was being restored. Is that correct?
There's additional monies for access management.
Yes, and so that bodes very well for us. Go ahead, Jim.
Right.
Previously, they didn't have any money, so there was no point in having people apply for it. Now that they have funds, it'll be, I assume, somewhat of a first come, first served competition.
I mean, obviously, we get additional funds, then yeah, we'll put them into that intersection. But we need, I would rather do it with KDOT money than Franklin County taxpayer money, so.
Okay, we got a public hearing, public comment. Gene?
Gene Hurt, 219 West 4th Street, Linden, Kansas. Did I just hear what I heard? More money? You ain't got it done? You want to wait? You know, I'll tell you. You know, people of this county, listen to me and listen to me good. Because what's going to happen is your taxes are going to go sky high because they're not going to get all the money they're going to want from state. You're going to have to foot the bill here. You know, here we go. You know, you knew when you did Proximity Park that you were going to have to do something like this. And now all the millions that you're going to be spending to get this up adequately, even if you get somebody there, their company ain't going to go willing to take care of part of this themselves. They're interested in being where they're going to be put. My God, come on. Start thinking. Man, I want it to work. I want it to work. Sure, everybody else does because of the amount of money you're spending. But doggone it, you're not doing it right. I'm telling you, I hope I'm wrong. But your taxes of the people. But see, here's the other part about that area that I wanted to get across today because I had people that I've talked to in the last week that the Commissioner Oglesby, you're in that district. That's your district, okay? Now, the people want you to say something along the line about, do you know the inconvenience they're going through out there? The people and the farmers and the people that need that road and knew that, and they have to wait and have to wait and have to wait. You know, something needs to be said by this county and all that to what they're experiencing out there. And they wanted me to say that, a couple of them, and I said I had no problem doing that. I had no problem, but you ought to be saying something about that part because these people are being hurt, and it's going to take a long time to get it done. So you got to remember those people live out there. It's their property, their land. They ought to have a road to get where they need to get to, and the farmers as well. And I can't emphasize that enough. But I tell you this, you know, if you're going to want to get the companies here, again, I'm going to say, you got to move, and you got to move fast. If you don't, Topeka and the rest of the places around are going to take it away from you, and you'll be left with just the hog farms and the chicken farms to go in there. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions in for Jim? I noticed that in there, that's the lane, moving the utilities, easements, acquisition, all that stuff is included in that whole project for that intersection. So obviously, one of those things that we knew we were going to have to be doing was we did the progress. So any other questions or comments? Okay, I'd accept a motion then.
I make a motion to approve submitting an access management construction project application for additional work at US 59 and Kingman Road.
Second.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Chair Renaud.
Yes. Okay, that takes us to the third item on our agenda this morning. Consider for approval awarding the culvert bid to drainage products in the amount of $47,070.30. Jim?
The department solicited fax bids to replenish our stock of culverts. The bid from Drainage Products was the lowest and best bid received at $47,070.30. The request is a motion awarding the purchase to Drainage Products.
Is that about what we spent last year on culverts, Jim?
No, we budget $100,000 for culverts. This is the second time this year we've taken a large bid. We have other culverts that come up during the year of larger sizes that we bid individually.
I don't have any problem with the recommendation. The only question I had, and Derek, is probably for you, is I talked to Jim earlier about, we accepted a 14-gauge pipe instead of a 12-gauge, but we had said no substitutions allowed. As long as that doesn't give us any exposure, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, so,
It doesn't.
okay.
We reserve the right to accept any bid or proposal that is most advantageous to us, so no, not a problem there.
Make a motion to award the bid on culverts to drainage products in the amount of $47,070.30.
Second it.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Renaud.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, the next item then is discussion of fuel island repairs. Peg?
Good morning.
Morning.
Back in first part of October, I know you guys are all aware of this, but we had a fuel leak out at our fuel island. It appeared at first that it was one leak in a line right in front of our tank. Turns out that we have found that there are numerous leaks throughout those lines. We applied for trust fund money for the KDHE to come in and do remediation, which would not be of any cost to us outside of the $4,000 deductible, which we have already paid. We were approved for the trust fund. Reason I'm here this morning, we have a couple of options, I guess, if we want to look at them. The first one would be to come back with our single wall tanks. These were both used tanks when we purchased them. We don't know for sure that that unleaded tank is not currently still leaking. Without having to drain that, somebody get inside of it, spend quite a bit of money to figure that out. And then we're taking the chance also that KDHE could come in the next few years, since it's a single wall tank, and tell us that we're not in compliance. So I did send out information to get a couple of bids on actually replacing those tanks with two double-walled tanks, which would work as self-containment for themselves. What we got back was a bid from Hoydale, which you guys have seen on the attachment. That bid includes everything from the ground up once the remediation's done. We can cut some money off of that bid because we're able to remove our own tanks. We are able to dispose of them on Purple Wave or however is approved. We can also unload the new tanks when they get here, roughly a cost savings of $6,000 right there. There are a few other things that we could do. Well, one thing that's happened, it's been determined that before the leak was discovered, we had an accident out at the fuel island that needed repaired. And that, they believe, is what has caused the other leaks in the line. So the insurance claim has actually been reopened. So there will be some more savings there as well. How much is yet to be determined. My personal thought is that if we come back with two double wall tanks and they are going to take care of their own self-containment, we have them put on a slab, it's probably going to be our least expensive way to go. If we have to go back with option one and take the chance of using those single wall tanks, we're going to have to build a cement containment with walls to accommodate up to 31,000 gallons of fuel. It has to be 1.25 times the amount of your two tanks together. It takes us 12 weeks to get tanks in. We don't know for sure when remediation is going to take place because KDHE is in the process of finding bidders right now. But I feel like it might be a proactive move if we want to choose to go that way to get the double wall tanks and get them at least on order.
And I think part of the reason we wanted to get this in front of you today to get your thoughts on the tanks. I mean, we don't have and this quote from Hoydale is going to change, and so we're not necessarily asking for approval of that quote. And we also don't know exactly what K-Camp is going to do because they're still investigating the claim. But as Peg said, if there is interest in the tanks, we wanted to get that on order, and the benefit of the tanks is it is the KDHE recommended route. I mean, it future-proofs us in that regard, and one of the things we always talk about here is how do we want to resolve problems when they arise? Do we want to effectively bandage those problems and just get by? Or do we want to do it right and do it in a way that's going to sustain itself? And talking with Peg and talking with Jim and talking with Jeff, it's pretty unanimous. Let's go ahead and do the double-walled tanks. Let's do what we can in-house to save costs that way. And we think that's the best balance of efficiency with taxpayer dollars and the long-term benefits of the organization. And so got Jeff here. If you have any questions about exactly what him and his staff can do, both David and Jim and Peg are well versed in this, so please ask any questions that you need to.
So the remainder, what isn't covered by insurance or we couldn't do in-house would come out of equipment reserve, probably for Public Works? Operating fund. And I think of it as if we had another piece of equipment or that exposed us to this much liability and potential problems, we'd consider that money well spent to replace. So I agree that go and replace them with a double wall tank. I think you got a good course of action lined out. So I definitely appreciate looking at ways we can do some things in-house to save money. I mean, it'd be foolish for us to pay full price for them to do something when we have a piece of equipment sitting right next to it that could do it too. So.
Well, and I agree, and Peg has handled this incredibly well. She's really quarterbacked this. And the trust fund is another great move. And to be clear, we've spoken with KDHE about this because, when I first heard about a leak, immediately I'm concerned about the soil contamination, and we got in touch with them, and they aren't concerned, really. I mean, this is the sort of thing that happens all the time, which is why they have a trust fund set up for this specific purpose. And so applying for it was easy. It was done in a relatively short amount of time. We've already been approved. We've paid our deductible. And so the remediation is covered. There will be a portion of the damage that is covered by K-Camp. It's really just going to be the tanks and a couple of other expenses, but the slabs, we've done what we can to offset the other costs. So,
On the motion today, just want the consensus to move this way.
Well, I think you could probably give us a motion to purchase the 2 tanks because that's going to go above my spending authority. And so, and then we can work with Hoydale regarding modifying their quote. I'm sure that won't be a problem in
No,
terms
not a
of
problem at all.
what we can do in-house. So.
Is there an advantage to having your own tanks over commercial purchases with one of the, I'm sure you guys have cards that you can buy at most stations locally or anywhere in the state or.
We do. One of the things that I have kind of taken into consideration, we just purchased approximately 4 years ago the new equipment for the island out there. It's very handy for road and bridge. We have had minimal problems during the wintertime with diesel fuel gelling, replacing filters and things on equipment because of the quality of fuel that we're getting. My thought is you go out into the community, wherever, to purchase fuel. You really don't know. I mean, they can tell you that they've got a winter blend in there, and we may be spending hours upon hours working on equipment.
Also, to speak to the side of paying for the fuel, you know, our deputies and other people who have to periodically go outside the county, they do have a specific card that's set up so it removes all the fuel tax and stuff. But the Public Works Department is just utilizing their credit cards to do that. And if we were going to not have our own fuel tanks, then we would have to set that whole program up for Public Works and get each vehicle its own card so that we could track fuel and stuff like that. And that would be, you know, more staff time to track and you know, more work in my office and in the Public Works office to, you know, do the vouchers and everything for that. So that is definitely a consideration too. And right now they're using their purchasing cards to purchase fuel locally. So, you know, the quicker that we can get the fuel island back up and running, the better.
Staff time on the backside.
Yeah.
I just think it's a good question to ask for the people to know why we want to move in this direction, if that's the course we take. And I can tell you from my past experience, I would never even consider a single wall tank. It would never be an option. Double wall is the only way you can realistically even look at it. But I think it's a good question to know, and the answer for the public to know is that this is a lot more convenient, and we know the grade of fuel that we're getting in, and it works better for us.
Absolutely.
On average, what do we save per gallon over retail?
I don't know.
Around 25 to 27 cents is about the average.
It is that much, okay.
Yes.
Okay, then we could look for a bid then on purchasing of the tanks and proceeding with the plan that has been laid out for us.
Yeah, I think the motion would just be a motion to approve purchase of the 2 fuel tanks. As Peg mentioned, what we found is there's just not a lot of vendors that do this sort of thing. I think there are basically 2 in the Midwest. I mean, is that, or in
2
this?
in the Kansas City surrounding areas, without having to go up into Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois.
A mobilization.
Just, yeah. Yeah, and the second company that I contacted, they don't seem to have any interest at all. I've contacted them at least 3 times and just get no response.
I'd make a motion to replace the county's existing single-wall tanks with 2 new double-wall self-containment tanks.
Second it.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes?
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Renaud?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate the work that you've done on that. Okay, the next item is to discuss and approve the September and October 2018 EMS report. Morning, Nick.
Good morning, Commission. We'll start with the September 2018 report. In September, we responded to 347 calls, average 11.57 a day, bringing us up to 2,857 for the year, which is 135 over the previous year. We had deposits of 104,253.35. 91,368.35 was EMS responses. 12,885 was through our education department. Most of that came from the EMT costs that we started and got paid for. So 33,000 over what our monthly budget is. So it brings us to 849,420.52, just 572 under what we budgeted. So we're doing really good on revenues. You look at our adjustments, we're at 65,051.38. We are assuming 15,630.92 to the state set-off, 1,331.95 to Midwest collections, and we did have charges of 195,459.38. Due to the 347 calls, we did have 29 move-ups, so it was a busy month in September. Jumping back to page 5, we did transport 133 patients to ransom. we continue to see the shift from patients going to Olathe to Shawnee Mission. You can see that throughout the last year. Usually we were transporting about 30-some to Olathe, and now we're only getting in the 20s and 10 and more to Shawnee Mission. Did have refusals, 79 for the month, bringing us to a 22.77% refusal rate. Any questions on the September report? Okay. We'll go to the October report now. October was another busy month, 365 calls, average 11.77 calls a day, bringing us to 3,222 calls, which is 230 over where we were last year. So if you look at that over the last 2 years, we've had significant call volume increases. Total deposits of 94,182.23. 93,752.23 of those were for EMS. 430 were for education, bringing us to deposits of 943,602.75, putting us 93,602.75 above what we had budgeted. So it's been a good revenue month, like I said earlier. 58,045.67 in adjustments, 17,951.61 sent to the state set-off program, 4,678.28 sent to Midwest Collections, 190,244.25 in charges, and 34 move-ups. So as you can see, our move-ups are up quite a bit, but our call volume is too. We'll just go to page 5 again. We transported 145 patients out of 365 responses to ransom. We did have 76 refusals, which was down from the 22% now to the 20%. So this time of year, it's tough. You get car wrecks, you get a lot of different things, falls, that stuff. So you see the differences in what lift assist, that stuff. So you are going to have more refusals. It's kind of the nature of the beast. Any questions on the EMS reports for those 2 months?
I have a question, though, on a refusal. Let's say you go to a car wreck and I don't know whether you use a Band-Aid or whether you use some supplies are done, and then they refuse to go anywhere. They go by private vehicle. Are they ever billed or anything, or is there any?
We don't bill for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Lift assist, all that. There has been conversations in the past. I believe a couple of years ago, we really got into, do we need to bill for these or not? At that point in time, that's pretty much when we brought the community education person on board too. We had multiple users of our services for diabetics. They would go out, they'd have low blood sugar, we'd give them D50, get them a sandwich, and they'd refuse, which cost, the cost for that was around $100 what it cost us to do that. The concern at that point in time for billing was, do we want to keep people from calling? Do we want them to make a financial decision on their health? And really, by putting the community education position in place, we've taken, and I'll give you, the year-end report will really show it, but we've taken diabetics from what used to be one of our highest calls down to not really, maybe 2 or 3 a month versus the 10 or 12 we had previously. With putting in the fall prevention programs we did with the services for the elderly and that, we've been really focusing on falls, trying to get that, because that was another one that was really one of our peak calls, was going and doing lift assist. So we're trying to take that out by doing education versus having to bill. And right now, with the way our finances are coming in, I think this is a great public service that we are able to do.
Okay.
But there are services, you look south of us, if you call 911, you do get a bill. And with the way the healthcare is shifting, they're going more to services in the home. Your hospice care, as you go out, they're looking at TPOP orders, which is the transporting order, where if you have somebody that's on hospice and they need a medication, we basically be able to go out there and give that pain medicine for that person and then leave, and your insurance companies will pay it. So I think we're on the verge of seeing insurance companies starting to pick these bills up. But that is a good question on down the road, what we want to look at doing.
Well, certainly safety and taking care of our people is the driving thing and what we should concentrate on. It's just a curious thing because the accident I'm thinking of where I know the guy went on to what he needed to get to, he felt it was a Veterans Day program and he'd rolled his truck that morning out there and I saw his bandage was wrapped up and I just wondered, well, how do we handle that? And I think that's the right thing to do, you know, and why make a big thing out of something that's not, you know, like I say, you can eat that and not a big deal, so.
Sounds like you thought that out very
Yeah,
well.
right. That's exactly right.
I agree. I'm glad you went the education route as opposed to
Sure.
going down that slippery slope of
Yeah.
discouraging people from calling. And at the end of the day, it is a public service, and for those nominal services, we really probably shouldn't be.
Sure.
And it's been, you know, the conversation have happened is what is too many on some of that. You have a patient who calls us once a week for a diabetic emergency. Now we're kind of getting into a slippery slope of some tough decisions, but really by getting the community education person out there and that, we have seen a lot of good success with it. You want to approve those, or you want me to jump into the?
No, we can go ahead and take a motion on that. The adjustments for September and October.
Make a motion to approve the EMS adjustments for September and October of 2018.
Second.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Chair Renaud.
Yes. Okay, Nick?
On the communications report, Sarah and I continue to dig into numbers, look at different things that we feel might be pertinent for information that we need to share with you guys, plus share with our dispatchers when we're looking at staffing and all that. So jumping into the report, we in October, we had 3,943 CAD calls put into the service. So that was about 127.19 a day, giving us 38,371 calls put into CAD. That's 288 less than we had last year. You can look at the report there and see where our users are at, what it looks like. The city of Ottawa in October with 39% of the CAD calls, with the Sheriff's Department following with 28%. Wellsville Police Department 14%, and then EMS was down with 9%. So those were your top users of the dispatch center. It pretty much falls the same with the complete 2018 report. Where I wanted to kind of focus is on page 4. We'll start looking at some things. Page 4, you can see the top chart there basically shows a timeline for when the dispatch center gets busy. And I keep painting this picture and bringing it because as we grow and we advance, staffing is going to be one of those things we're going to continue to talk about. So I want to make sure we know when our peak times are, when that stuff happens. The next chart below that gives you a look at how many 911 calls were answered in the center and how many administrative line calls. So I say we had 3,943 CAD responses. We also at that time took 1,201 911 calls, and we had 3,789 administrative line calls. So you take and add that together, that's a lot of things coming in during the month. Page 5 gives you just a big picture of when all this stuff happens. It's if you look, the blue is the CAD put into the system. The orange is going to be your 911 calls, and the gray will be the administrative lines. So you can see at about 8 o'clock in the morning, it kind of wakes up. Peak times for calls usually are between 8 to 4, and then you start seeing the phone calls pick up, but you still see the 911 and the CAD calls up until about 10 o'clock at night. So just a good visual picture of what it looks like in there. Page 6 and page 7 are for the year. But on page 7, if you look, I also went and not only broke out the peak times for the day, we broke out the days of the week too. So you can see, which was surprising for me, your Saturdays and Sundays the phones weren't surprised because we're not gonna do administrative lines, but you see the 911 calls, CAD calls are kind of weaker on Saturday and Sunday, but you see everything peak Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and that's where you include all the administrative lines. So just a quick overview of what it looks like in there, what we got going, and to see the numbers. So is there any questions on any of that report that I can give you any more information, or you guys need any more information or would like to see anything else come out of that? Okay.
Any other questions for Nick? Okay, next item on the agenda then is discuss the next Gen 911 for the Franklin County Emergency Communications Center.
This is a conversation that happened right after we made the transition. There's been a lot of talk in the history of what to do with the phone system. Next Gen 911 is the ability to text into 911, so if somebody's in a situation where they can't make a phone call, they can text in. It also allows for some enhanced mapping systems and locating of phones. As you guys well know, copper lines in houses are going away. Everybody uses a cell phone. The current 911 system we're on is still on copper phone lines. The next Gen 911 actually goes through, if you go with the state system, and we'll talk about those in detail in a minute, you go through Topeka over IP back in here over fiber. With the MARC system, it goes into up to the Johnson County host and would come back to us over microwave. So it basically, you know, when you pick up the phone now, you'll hear a couple rings before it'll ring somewhere else. With the next gen system, it's so much faster that as soon as you hear half a ring, it should be ringing into the dispatch center. The system that's in dispatch right now was purchased in 2005. The last update that was done on it was in 2010. Like I said, this was talked about when I came on board, but with the radio system, we chose to kind of table this a little bit. A month and a half ago, we had one of our phones go down and found out quickly that that is an obsolete system. The system, they don't make parts for it anymore. AT&T was able to find parts in Arkansas to put us back together. So we're really living on a system that's obsolete. If you look at the state of Kansas, we're one of two counties that have not made a transition to something. So we're past time to make this choice. I did put together a committee talking about this, and it was Sarah Puffley, the dispatch manager, Dustin Court, Alan Radcliffe, and we had Abby Adams, one of our dispatchers, sit on that committee. And we got to look, and there's really two basic choices for us to go. One of them was the Mid-America Regional Council, which is based up in Johnson County, Kansas City area. They have their own system. It folds from, I think, 4 counties in Kansas or 5, and like 6 or 7 in Missouri that fund that. And you have the option as we grow this way. The other system is the state of Kansas. It's hosted by the 911 Coordinating Council, and I believe there's over 80 or 90 counties in the state of Kansas on this system. The good thing with this system is it does give you a vast amount of communities paying into it, so your prices are going to be a little bit less. It does work hand in hand with AT&T, so we do not lose our AT&T service that we have, the current service technicians that we use, we'll continue to use. With the MARC system, they have 3 support people, and that would come down and take care of our stuff. We looked at both of them extensively due to the fact that Johnson County, or the stuff in Johnson County is moving this way. We're seeing that growth, and it would be important to be tied together at some time. So with that, we really analyzed the whole system. We got Alan Radcliffe in there because, like I said, the MARC region uses microwaves. So it would be a microwave shot from one of our towers into here with a backup system that would be over the internet. With With that, the upfront cost to purchase, with the Mark System 2, we have to purchase all of the equipment straight up. And then we turn it over to them, and then we have a monthly or yearly charges for it. So the upfront cost to go with the Mark System alone was $191,000. With that, it kind of set us back a little bit. With the state system, it's a set price. That set price is $18,000 a console. So if you look in dispatch now, we have 4 consoles currently. So it would be $72,000 to go yearly with the state for this service. The Mark System, after you purchase the equipment, their per console was $21,907, so significantly higher, $87,630 a year, with a known 6% increase over the next 3 years. The state of Kansas, talking to Scott at the state, they're hoping to hold this 18,000 till at least 2022. Pretty safe bet that they're going to keep it that way. They, with having this many departments or counties on it, have been successful with that. So the next thing we looked at is we wanted to talk about training. As I've talked to you guys, I want to set a console upstairs. I want to have the ability to train our dispatchers before they get in there. With the Mark System, it was going to cost us another $21,000 because we had to buy a full console. With the state, it's $1,300 for that system, and it's basically what it is the same system without a mapping screen. So we have got quite a bit of savings there. The other thing is that the state has the training phone, so we can sit and make phone calls, put in addresses in that, and actually test our dispatchers with that phone. So there's a lot of benefits with the state system that Mark doesn't have at this point. So the startup cost with both of these systems to compare is, it would be $73,660 if we went with the state. Currently, we have the fiber in the room, so you look at 120-day setup time to go with the state. Back years ago, the state thought we was going with them, went ahead and installed the fiber, so the fiber's already there. So we're looking at maybe 30 to 60 days to have this in place if we go that route. And like I said, the cost is $73,660. The Mark System, the initial startup cost is $301,000 for us to do that. Currently in our 911 fund, we have $239,832.04, so that pretty much prices us out of the Mark System. So my recommendation today for you guys is to approve the bid to go with the state system for a long-term agreement. And for the first year, they'll prorate us in after they install it. So if it goes in February, we'll be prorated for that year. And then it's $73,000 up to if there is an increase. Some information I do want to share with you. Our 911 fund would pay for this. That's the tax fund that comes in. We currently get about $14,000 a month for that. So yearly, we're getting somewhere in the ballpark of $168,000. So if we go with the state system, that leaves us about $94,700 to pay for other expenses.
What are the other expenses that we use that fund for, Nick?
The other expenses, we still have to pay for certain phone lines that come in there, the administrative lines, that kind of stuff. We have the CAD system stuff that we pay for having the CAD in the dispatch center.
Weren't there some maintenance costs with the radio system that are coming out of there? I know it's
What
real
comes out of
particular
there as
what
far as-
we can use that 911 for.
Right now, it's not. I don't know when the contract ends, because currently it's coming out of emergency management. But when that contract ends, I don't know if it's going to stay in emergency management or if it's going to come back to dispatch for the radios.
Are there air cards?
Air cards do not come out of that. They at one time were, but there's no air cards coming out of that anymore. We've really taken to streamline that to understand what we really need coming out of it. And honestly to try to keep from depleting the fund in case we do have big purchases like this come up.
Suffice to say, you're confident that the 911 fund on an annual basis can handle the annual fees?
I don't see why it would not, because what I was getting to is we get about 168,000. That leaves us 94,700. So the cost differences between going with the mark and the state is about $36,000 a year. So I'm a whole lot more confident with this decision by going with the state versus mark, because that 36,000 can be used. We use that for education. We can use it for stuff like that to help build our dispatchers up, and I'd prefer to put it into that than to put it into a phone system that we're getting the same thing from the state. So Sarah's here, Dustin's here. If you have questions, want more information on it, we're happy to answer anything, but this is a project that needs to be taken care of, and we need to get a replacement of the old system in there.
We've spent a considerable amount of time, Nick, Sarah, and I, looking forward and trying to assess, what our future costs and expenses are going to be. And obviously, to some extent, that's an exercise in futility. Having said that, though, when it comes to the bigger purchases, if we can get on Next Gen 911 along with our new radio system, I think we're going to be sitting pretty for a long time. And that will allow Nick to focus more on the training and the education of dispatchers. And certainly we are always looking at creative ways to use funds like the 911 fund. We talk about the solid waste fund, entirely different, but these funds that aren't ad valorem tax dollars, to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck. And the 911 fund is no exception there. So.
And another thing to think about when we're looking at this is interoperability. The thing we haven't had in the past is a backup dispatch center. We've put it at EMS, it's been out there, but there really hasn't been a good solid one. With the state, the way we have our radio system now, anybody that has the state system in their dispatch center, we can go set up and talk back to Franklin County. With the Next Gen system, the way it works, if we go to another dispatch center that has a state of Kansas host, like Anderson County is on the state, our dispatchers go down there, basically log in, and we have all of our stuff, phones, everything can be routed there. If we wanted to make Douglas County our backup center, this makes transferring the lines to Douglas County a whole lot easier. They are on the MARC system, but we do have a lot better transfer of lines and that stuff with this. So this makes us at the administrative day, when we were talking to the administrative staff of the 911 Council, they recommend you have a backup dispatch center close, a backup dispatch center 2 or 3 counties away, and there's 2 different cores. There's a core in Wichita, there's one in Topeka. They kind of drew a line in the middle of the state versus north and south, and they recommend you have one on the south side too, in case something happens here, you can get on there. And that broadens our ability to be able to communicate or have that. If something would take out, or we have problems with the 911 system up here, we could go south and go to another dispatch center. So it will broaden us in that too, to allow us some different options.
Okay.
Is there anything beyond enhanced 911?
What's that?
Is there anything beyond Next Gen 911? Is there something out there that people are looking at right now?
I'm going to tell you right now, I think mapping and communications is a moving target, because right now the state of Kansas in January is going to sign a contract with a mapping server, and that mapping server actually was developed in South Africa. And believe it or not, they're more advanced than us in the 911 stuff or the communication stuff, because they run on IP over there all the time. And this mapping system that we're going to get with this, as it comes in, you can actually put layers of what airplanes are flying over your county, what the fires are like. If you have fires reported in a county, you can put a layer there. So I think we're just touching the base of what it looks like, because as I talked about earlier, used to you had a phone in your house and you picked it up and dialed 911. Now you call on your cell phone, and the technology's getting where if you've ever used Uber, if you've used Lyft, you can see where the car is, and they can see almost pinpoint accuracy where you're at. There was some funny things that was talked about when I first took over and read is why can Uber find me but 911 can't? And now there's Rapid SOS out there. There's these things that before they pinged the tower and they knew kind of a location where you're at. Well, now with Apple coming out with Rapid SOS built into the phone, Google's doing it, we can ping not only your cell phone, but what internet you're close to, or this to help better locate. So in this building, if you called 911, we could pinpoint to almost the exact location you're at. So to say, is there better? I think we're going to see advancements. The good thing with going with the state system is they've got a tax base. Number one, they've got a lot of users on this system. So we won't be seeing those increases that come up. And we'll, I think, stay cutting edge as we go through with that versus either going, which was an option of doing our own thing like Osage County did, but then you're funding all this yourself. So to answer the question, I think it's the scratching the surface of what it's going to be, but I think going with the state, we're going to be able to be safe with no major cost increases and be have a voice as it goes on.
I pulled up the budget sheet for the 911 fund. Of course, it just has expenditures as one-off lines. If it is possible, I mean, I agree, I think we're well within our abilities, but to get a breakdown of kind of what our annual costs coming out of that fund are, just to better understand it. I know we're well below it, below revenue, so I'm not worried about that, but I'd just like to understand the fund a little better. If you could maybe get that to us.
Sarah put a spreadsheet together. I'd be happy to go ahead and get that put together.
Say, I know we have that because we talk about it all the time, so just shoot
No
that.
doubt it came up at the staff level before it got to us.
Yeah.
I just want to understand it better.
Yeah.
We'll
no.
work on bringing that to you.
Okay, any more questions about
Well,
this?
this would go back to the same question I think we've had in the past for Janet. If we agree to this now, was it budgeted for this expenditure, and is that within our?
This is out of the 911 fund. This
It's not the same.
isn't the fund that that Ottawa helps fund. This is a different fund. This is just the phone tax money that comes into that.
And all of our
So-
funds, we budget to spend everything every year so
Yes.
that we have that
Yes, we
flexibility,
do.
because it's a fund for capital needs, and you never know what's gonna
Right.
break, right?
Okay. Any other questions then? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Let me pull it up. I would make a motion to enter into an agreement with the State of Kansas 911 Coordinating Council for Next Gen 911 services for Franklin County Emergency Communications Center.
Second.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Renaud.
Yes. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, staff reports.
Yeah, I want to talk just briefly on our staffing and a few changes. Before I get to that, and talk about Nick and Sarah a little bit. I think one of the things that we don't maybe think about enough is, we're asking Sarah to train our dispatchers. And Sarah's worked in dispatch for a very long time, incredibly competent dispatcher. And, she's now got a new radio system to train on. She's going to have a new phone system to train on. And she's done that with a terrific attitude, and she's looked forward to the challenge. And I will tell you, it's hard to find employees that embrace change like she has. And so I know she's making Nick's job a whole lot easier. And so certainly appreciate that. This county's a lot better for it. Obviously, I'm sitting next to David Lee here. He has officially started with the county, new Public Works Director. He is shadowing Jim. I'll let him talk a little bit about his impressions thus far. Before I do that, I would also tell you that Joanne Nowatzki officially started as the county's new HR director December 1st. And so Gayla is still here. She's still assisting Joanne, but Joanne is now the director. Our building official, who I know Larry is incredibly excited about, Pat Toth is his name. He's been down several times, working with our interim official, John Rainey. All reports thus far are incredibly positive. Pat brings enthusiasm and energy to the position. He wants to learn. He starts full-time next week, and then we haven't spoke about the new county attorney yet, but Brandon Jones has been in the county attorney role since, I believe, the 7th of last month. And all reports that I'm receiving are incredibly positive. He's got quite a job over there, but I know the staff is happy and they feel like they're all moving in a consistent and very positive direction. So really excited about the direction that we're heading as a county. I think we've made some great additions recently, and as we move forward, when we have turnover, if we can continue to replace those positions with people of David's caliber and the caliber of Mr. Toth and Mr. Jones, we're going to be on an excellent path. And so with that, I'll let David say a few words.
Well, first, Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to work with all of you. I am truly humbled and very, very excited to launch into this position. I've got huge shoes to fill, and every person that I've come into contact with over the last, 2.5 days almost, has been very gracious and very open about sharing information and thoughts and ideas. Right now, I'm trying to absorb as much of that as possible, learn names and faces, and really get to know the operations of the county. So I look forward to each and every day and really learning and growing in this position and doing my part to help the county staff and you all to serve out our mission to help our county citizens.
All right. That takes us into staff reports. You're done? Dustin? Janet? Jim?
I'd just like to just publicly say I sent you each an email regarding the USD 287 tax statements. We do have those prepared with our printer, and a corrected statement is going to be going out in the mail to those, and they will be very visibly noted that it is a corrected tax statement. Most of our citizens out in that area already are aware. Jody had it on the radio to let people know. So if you guys have any questions about that, certainly direct them to Jody or myself, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. It was just a glitch in our tax system that when that tax district was set up, it didn't collect all the tax units that was supposed to be applied to, and it levied the correct taxes on the tax roll, but it didn't know where to put them. So it did not distribute them down to the statements. So we have got that all corrected, and those statements did go out, are going out in the mail. So they'll be seeing those soon.
Those taxes that are paid by mortgage companies and stuff like that, will the time frame still be good for them probably? Or?
Yes, so we contacted them right away and let them know, and generally we don't get those in until mid-December. So, we worked with our software vendor on that, and the mortgage companies directly. I know Jody right away got in contact with our biggest mortgage companies, which are actually kind of ran by a company that handles their escrow accounts. So she contacted them right away, got them new files that very day that we knew there was a problem, and so they were working right away to get those handled, so.
Okay, that takes us in commissioner comments and board reports.
I can start. Monday, I attended Williamsburg City Council. They had quite a bit on the agenda, being they hadn't had a council meeting for a while. One of the main things, they're looking into the possibility of chip and sealing all their city streets, and if that would be feasible. They had a company from Wichita there, Bob Bergkamp Construction. They had some representatives were there to talk to them about that. They also had a Larry Kleinman from Ransom Financial. They're also out of Wichita. They were there too, to give them some options on how they could fund it, whether it be with bonds or however it might be. That took quite a bit of time. Basically, one of the representatives from that company is from Williamsburg originally. That's how they've come in contact with that company and had them come down from Wichita to talk to them. Other than that, it was just typical stuff. The Williamsburg Library Board, they want to change the charter ordinance. Basically, what they want is to be able to go outside of the city and the township to get people on their library board. They're having problems getting people to fill those spots and want to branch out and see if that's a possibility so they can get more people to choose from. Talked about ice melt, snow removal, those type of things. Talked about changing banks, approved a malt beverage license for the store out on the highway. Talked about a sidewalk grant to finish their sidewalks around their park. And appointed 2 new people to the library board. That was most of that meeting. Then yesterday I attended the RC&D board meeting. They had a guest speaker, David Carter. He's the head of K-State Engineering Extension. He discussed the Facility Conservation Improvement Program and gave everybody some ideas how that works and whether that would be possible. There's money available. Well, it's not really available, but they help set up the programs to help with small business, energy programs, or to help work on Kansas public buildings and so forth. And then the rest of the meeting was they talked about a KDHE grant. They talked about their bike trip to Ellsworth, repairs to the RC&D truck. They got an update on Project 17. And that's the 2 meetings I've been to since the last meeting.
Okay, cool.
Well, last Thursday, myself and Derek and David attended a kind of a visioning planning program for FCDC at Ottawa University, and it was I was very encouraged by the number of people in the room, the ideas that came forward. But one of the things that stuck out with me was some information that came out of Wellsville, and it caused me to do a little bit more research with the help of our planning director, Larry Walrod, and information from the city of Ottawa. The information is that Wellsville gave us was that they had 18 housing permits for this year. And so I went back and I started looking at the city of Ottawa's, and they have had 13 new single housings permits and 18 duplexes. That's 31 for the city of Ottawa. I got the information from Larry, and for the county, we've had 32 building permits for new residences in the county. And the amount of value has more than doubled in the county for the amount of construction that's taken place from the 2 previous years. I think that it speaks incredibly well that things are moving here in the county and surrounding areas, and there are good things that are happening. And I would just like to continue to say it is a happening place. We got a lot going on, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of this community.
Boy.
Well, I attended the Lake Region meeting yesterday morning, and Rick covered it. Something we might want to look into or be advantageous. It can't hurt by looking, it's a free service up front, so they look at it.
Okay. Monday night, I attended the Rantoul City Council meeting. They discussed, they had their Christmas party last Saturday. That was the only one that, the conflicts they had with their building, and they had talked about the number of children that were there, and then the leftovers they decided to give to citizens that were over the age of 70, which was a good idea and a well-thought-out thing. Discussed their boil order, which they're under right now, hoping that it'll be lifted pretty quickly. Getting their water employee to go to school, getting him enrolled in that, was part of the business. Also, 2 ordinances that they are having their city attorney who was there to write. One of them is an disturbing the peace, quiet zoning type thing. The other ordinance has to do with consistence with their water bills, late bills, when you cut off and that type of thing, and how to do that. Certainly in those small communities like Williamsburg and so forth, that trying to regulate housing, zoning, businesses and stuff like that is a real nightmare for them, and what kind of, if there is there any regulations and whatnot. So they have some struggles all the time, but that was pretty much their meeting. And that was the only one that I had an opportunity to attend, so nothing else. I'll consider a motion for adjournment.
You have anything on the study session for Monday at this time?
You know, I feel like there was something that I was going to put on Monday's study session, but as I sit here, it escapes my mind what it is. So I will look at my notes back in the office, and certainly we'll talk with Randy by tomorrow probably and figure that out. So, but I'll send a note out to you.
Then the next one, though, falls on, let's see, the 24th, which would be Christmas Eve, which you guys are off Christmas Eve? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? We're out of here.